Well, good afternoon, and obviously I am a very proud alumni of TechBuzz. I spoke here spring 2015. A lot of things have changed since, from the company, even the company name has changed. Just to give you a very brief overview on BlueCart, it's essentially a SaaS-enabled marketplace. What we do is we connect restaurants to their suppliers, right? And enabling them to buy from each other. Okay, and through this marketplace that we've created, we sell them additional products. Okay, so a restaurant can run their entire back of the house through BlueCart. Inventory management, costing, all those processes, all through BlueCart. And a supplier can do exactly the same thing with their warehouse. So to give you a sense of our current scale, we have from the buyer side, right, we have like Four Seasons, Marriott's, Kaiser Permanente Hospitals, school districts, universities, Michelin-star restaurants, franchises, all the way down to food trucks. 36,000 buyers on the platform. Mostly they're in the US. We do have a user base overseas. From the supplier side, we have from Unilever, Kraft, your traditional perishable goods like seafoods, meats, dairies, all the way down to like wineries, breweries, and farmers at the farmers market. So the platform has been growing very fast, and so has the company, and much of that is obviously owed by events like this, like TechBuzz, that give you exposure, give you practice, give you visibility that you can leverage in many different ways later on. So today, like Julia mentioned, we're about 55 employees in 4 different offices, hiring literally as fast as we can. We recently closed our Series B round, which is absolutely great news. But I did want to focus this presentation on the items or the different things that me as an entrepreneur would have loved to know 2 years ago when I was at TechBuzz, right? So investors, I apologize, but I will focus much of my discussion around what knowledge I would have liked to know. By no means do I describe my situation as success. I feel like, we're still going at it, right? So we're very, very far from success. Now, receiving funding means that somebody sees what you see, right? And it gives you the ability to continue doing it for a little bit longer, right? So it's encouraging, but nonetheless, the bad news is that receiving funding is not the end goal. So it's just one stepping stone that gives you a little bit more runway. So as you probably all know, entrepreneurship is extremely hard, right? So it's hard physically. If you guys look at the TechBuzz video of mine 2 years ago, I had a lot more hair. It's hard emotionally, right? So I'm blessed with having a wonderful, very patient wife, right? It's hard even technically, right? So there's so much that you don't know, so much that you need to learn, right? So there's a careful balance that you guys are gonna have to battle with. Essentially, it's this kind of 90%, 10% rule that I came up with. Essentially 90% of the potential success of your company is based on execution, and 10% is the idea itself, right? So you can have a great idea, but if your execution falls short, you're going nowhere, right? And now there's some mediocre ideas that have amazing executioners, and they carry that pretty far. That being said, what I encourage you guys to do is to seek mentorship every time that you have a question. Don't be so concerned about the secrecy of your idea, right? And be much more focused on executing against it, right? And we're also very, very lucky on the early stages, obviously, to find individuals like Steve Kaplan. I don't know where he is, but there you go. He is our attorney, and he saw the value of BlueCart, for example, and he decided you know what, I'll work for free for you guys until you guys have the ability to pay me, right? So it's people like that that really enable a business. And another aspect that I encourage you guys to really think about is the importance of not getting distracted by scale, right? So you're in a very early stage, right? One of the most important things that you guys need to focus in is finding product market fit, right? That means that you're gonna do a lot of things that are not scalable. Let me give you an example. The very first version of the app was developed by myself. I have zero tech background. I never studied computer science, but I kind of like taught myself how to do it, and I got my product in front of clients, right? So for all of you techies here, from day one, right, I had technology debt, right? So we had to like obviously trash that and rebuild the whole thing. Now, something that I learned is that and this is common knowledge, of course, is like you don't start learning until you get customers using your product, right? So until you reach that point, you're just building on assumptions, okay? So it's critically important that you put something in front of customers and you start getting feedback right away. And that you know, as an MBA student, right, both Jag and I, we went to school together. We enjoyed fantasizing about our business for hours and hours and hours and hours, and we didn't have a product. We had great like slideware, right, like a nice deck, but no real customer feedback. So July 2014, we had our product, we put it in front of people, they started telling us things, they started like letting us know what works, what doesn't, right? And at that point, you know, we started really learning what it was our industry all about and how we could like fit our product. So that was really interesting. Other things that I've done, you know, to get to that point, right? So when we went live July 2014, we started signing up restaurants, signing up suppliers, but for the first couple of months, nobody would use the platform, right? So there wasn't a single order going through the platform. You know, and as you can imagine, you have a team of co-founding team, right? That they're like eager to see when is the first transaction happening, right? And you could see like these restaurants, right? The suppliers, and like nobody's transacting. You know, so we're like losing sleep over this, right? So finally, I went to this restaurant that actually now closed. I went to the guy and I'm like, listen, would you mind using BlueCart? And he's like, well, I don't have time, yada, yada. I'm like, listen, I'm about to like miss my sales quota, right? Here's a Starbucks card. Can you please push one order? So he grabbed the app, he pushed one order, the team received the order, right? And ever since we started to like get orders like, on a recurring basis, right? So like you will do a lot of like non-scalable things that would inform your product, okay? Obviously I can't pay Starbucks cards for every single one of our orders today, right? But in those initial steps, right, it was absolutely imperative for us to like start learning, right? And really, really interesting. And I hope one of our angel investors is not around. But so we're going through our seed round and before the first order, right? So he's a fantastic angel investor. He actually was my MBA professor. And he's a very active investor, Jim Hunt, in the DC area. So we got a term sheet from him and his team, and we didn't have a single order, right? So we received the term sheet. We're very grateful. We haven't signed it. And this was, I think it was like a $2 million valuation with nothing, you know, just potential users, right? So then we got that first order, right? So I looked at Jag, my co-founder, and I said, Jag, we need to go back to these guys and tell them that we're worth more. There's one order, right? So it worked. It worked. I sent them one email. It's a $1 million email that I send them, and they raised their valuation from 2 to 3. And we raised our seed round like that. So that was a big success. That Starbucks card paid dividends. So, but you know, like you're gonna be facing a lot of like challenges like that. And I'll talk in a little bit about the VC world. But other really important things is you know, paying attention to your team. Your first and early employees are absolutely critical. You have to hire for passion. You obviously have to keep in mind, you know, their technical abilities. 8 of our first employees work for free for the first year. Right between seed and A, there was a very serious like struggle period where essentially we told the employees, listen, like, not only can we not pay you, but we might have to work from home for a little bit because, like, you know, my credit cards are maxed out, Jack's credit cards are maxed out, so we couldn't like finance this anymore. And all of them essentially said, we'll continue working. It doesn't really matter where we go, because at that point we're seeing a lot of like transaction volume. So the team is critically important. And when I also say that being an entrepreneur is emotionally hard, right? I fired my best friend from the company. He's also an angel investor, you know, so you can imagine like how difficult that was. He's still my best friend, surprisingly enough. But it's challenging. And now that we're growing, now that we're like, for example, 55 employees, right? you need to be very good at assessing when you've exceeded the capacity of your own team, right? And now there's been like very difficult kind of like graduations that we've done for certain positions that we need to like get additional expertise. And that's a very difficult process because you know that these people have committed to you. You know, they've given you part of their professional life, a lot of their emotional life. So you owe them, you know, and obviously they're all stock option holders and you know, now they'll be taken care of and obviously we're extremely grateful. But nonetheless, you need to be sensitive to those things. You know, the starting team is key, but as you grow, you're gonna have to like reassess. And that applies to myself as well, right? That there might be a point, hopefully it doesn't, but there might be a point where I need to be replaced, right? And I need to be sensitive to that where, you know, I feel like, you know, maybe somebody can like do much better job than what I can do. So that's interesting. From the other aspect that I do wanna cover, and this is a sensitive one, is about investors, right? We have investors from both coasts, East Coast and West Coast. They're extremely different, extremely different. So to give you a sense of the sample size that I'm talking about, for our Series A, we spoke with 84 VCs, okay? That was very, very taxing. The really interesting part is that out of the 84 VCs that we spoke with, right? The first 2 that we spoke with led the Series A round 6 months later. So really interesting, and it was a mix of East Coast and West Coast. What's also fascinating is that we still have 2 different decks for an East Coast VC or a West Coast VC. You know, so and this is interesting because like it blew my mind, right? Like for an East Coast VC, right, we have to focus on revenue. We have to focus on monetization. We have to have a clear sight into break even. You have to have your unit economics down, right? And for a West Coast VC, you have to strip off everything that talks about revenue and talk about growth, right? How are you gonna acquire more customers? What's your lead velocity? What is, you know, how fast are you growing? You know, what's your net promoter score? And things of that nature. That's what gets them excited. And so that was really, really interesting because like we were getting mixed messages, and it wasn't until I sat down with an advisor and said, what's going on? Like how come these guys focus on this and those guys focus on that? And he told me like, listen, you need 2 decks. Continuing with a sample size for Series B, things did not get better from sample size. We spoke with 134 VCs at that point and investors. There's a caveat there. We did it intentionally. So for Series B, we decided that we were going to talk to absolutely everybody under the sun. The idea was not that an angel investor was likely to invest in us, but I wanted to make sure that that angel investor did not invest in the next Jag and Constantine that would come in my space. So I wanted to like essentially like puff our chest as much as possible to make sure that we could continue to preserve this market leadership that we have today. So that obviously taught us a lot, and it also taught my team a lot. So for example, when a smaller fund would approach us, right, instead of me doing the pitch, maybe I looked for somebody else in the company and said, you know what, why don't you like pitch them and give them a sense? Because like there was no chance that they were going to invest anyways. We were obviously outgrown them, but sometimes they'll reach out to you just to do investigation and analysis and comparison with their existing portfolio companies, and you need to be sensitive to that. Talking about the due diligence that you guys have to do on investors, right? I'm not sure if you guys know, there's this new company called Know Your VC, okay? They just started, they're brand new. They're a Yelp for VCs. They're very, very clunky. They just started, it's all manual, so like you upload a review and it takes 3 days to get posted. Nonetheless, the intention is very good. So, you know, we've had very, very positive experiences with VCs and very negative ones from VCs that tend to like waste your time and, you know, they go radio silent for a while and then they ask for a lot of data and you give them all your data and they never talk to you again. So, you know, you guys have a responsibility to make sure you share that feedback so that others, you know, can learn from your experience and we can hold kind of like everybody accountable to like our standards. Your time is the most important time, okay? So like when you take an hour away from your office, you know, to go and visit a VC and the VC shows up 30 minutes late, you know, and then they show up and they ask you 2 questions and they walk away, right? You just wasted time running your business. So it's your responsibility to make sure that you float these things. Also make sure that the VCs have money. Go to Crunchbase, look at when was the last time that they invested money, see what investments they've done lately. Also really important, that will save you a ton of time, is know the difference between a partner and a non-partner. Partner is a decision maker. Everybody else is a filter. Okay, so if you don't have a partner on the line, you're gonna have to talk to these guys again, all the way from scratch. And not only that, a partner has the social capital in that VC to get a deal done. Everybody else does not. Okay, so be sensitive to that. Also, if it's a first-time partner is not gonna close, a very entrepreneur-friendly deal, right? A first-time partner is gonna try to impress the rest of his team with a really good deal, right? So just be sensitive to this stuff. It's really important because it will affect things. The other thing that helped us a lot is run a process. So essentially decide when you're going to talk to VCs and investors, right? Make sure that you have enough runway, right? And let them know when you're expecting term sheets and hold them accountable to that. Otherwise, essentially VCs will come to you and will ask you for data. They'll talk to you 2 weeks later. They'll ask you for data again. And since they all ask about your burn rate and your cash, they know exactly when you're going to run out of money. So be sensitive to that thing. And lastly, for those of you that kind of raise your eyebrows at the sample size of the VCs that we spoke about, right? Like Jeff Bezos, right, spoke with 60 investors to raise 1 million. We spoke with 84, sorry. So I want to leave you guys with Thomas Jefferson quote where, he said, if you want something that you've never had, right, you need to be willing to do something you've never done. Thank you very much.